Senator Driscoll. Here. Senator French.
Here.
Senator Guru.
Here.
Senator Larson.
Here.
And Chairman Salzar. Here. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Welcome.
thank you. Thank you very much. What I thought I might do for you, we've got a lot of experts in the room. I thought I'd give you kind of a 30,000-foot view of this bill that came out of the Select Committee on School Facilities. You may recall that a year ago, we increased the allowable square footage of what the state pays our districts out across the state. We went from 115% of that square footage to 135%. The reason for that is that there is a lot of square footage out across the districts that existed before, and in some cases, there's additional square footage that's been built since, but there's more square footage out there in the districts than what we reimburse. So that's really what this bill does, Mr. Chairman. Given the fact that we increased it for the year last year, the Select Committee brings this bill back to suggest we should continue to pay that at 135. It just allows for taking care of major maintenance out there. So I'd be glad to answer any questions from the Select Committee point of view, but as I said, we've got some experts behind me who can give you the background even more than that.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Yeah. Questions to my vice chair and then to Senator Guru.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I voted for this last year with some heartburn with it. And, you know, I'm fine with the existed before, but you talked about the has been added on. And I think we're into a deal that almost creates a never-ending problem. As we build these new schools, we build enhancements on them and we build more square footage. And then we seem to be on the hook for the major maintenance and the maintenance of it. And for me, that's a major heartburn for me is, you know, these districts can afford it, build way excess. And if you're in a big district, you can build big numbers of excess footage and we pay for it. And so I'd really like to see some kind of sideboards put in there that we stop this never ending deal is I'd like to know your thoughts on putting a deal that says anything built after, and I'd actually like to backdate it some, go back to, you know, 1995 or 2000 and say, we're going to pay on the previous stuff, but we're not going to pay on anything new. Cause I just think it really creates an incentive for them to go build something more on it. Cause we're going to actually get to enhance our budgets by doing it. And I'm looking back at Director McComey. I hope I'm stating the facts right. If I'm not, I hope somebody corrects me and gets me online. So
Sure.
Thanks, Chairman Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And Mr. Vice Chairman, I understand the sentiment. We wrestled with that in the Select Committee as well, but I would say that normally on these enhancements now, and I'll use Albany County as an example, when they voted through a bond issue for an enhancement on that high school, we built what we allow, and that school district went to the bond to take care of a swimming pool or whatever. They put a sinking fund in place. So that additional enhanced square footage is already taken care of. It's not expected out of the state. But there's a lot of square footage unlike that, unlike those additions that you referenced that already exists out there in schools, most of them that were built before the state took over. Because now we have protocols in place and you know, limitations that we will build a school based on our specs. Before that, we didn't. You take Riverton and Sheridan and Gillette, just three of the examples out across the state that in fact, Fremont County 25 is a great example of work that we continue to do in that district because they really had a lot too much square footage. We've been trying to right size that square footage for the last 6, 8, 10 years. So you will see in a school facilities bill this year, something more for Fremont County 25, and that is to address these extra pieces of square footage that we have out there. It takes time to right size this. In the meantime, those districts have to take care of this square footage, regardless of whether it's, whatever it's allowed. This is a policy consideration for us, no question. We either stay with 135 or we drop back to 115 where we were before then, knowing that 115 doesn't cover all the square footage out there. So I hope that helps. Like I said, I think the director of the agency and the division administrator, along with Mr. Wilmarth, can probably help me sound a lot better on this. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Senator, let me ask you this. Assuming you were to fully fund major maintenance in the school CapCon, how would that affect with this then?
I don't think that this bill, I'm trying to think of how the best way to answer that, Mr. Chairman, because I'm trying to understand exactly where you're headed with it. I'm
No,
sorry.
I just, well, I guess my question is, if this were not to go forward, are we still taking care of our schools with fully funding the major maintenance portion of the school CapCon bills?
We, I think, have done a good job the last few years of recognizing that this maintenance is an important issue for us. If we don't maintain these buildings, we have to build new ones. And that's when we really pay a dear price. So I think we've been on the right track. That again is why the select committee chose to bring this back to us to say, you know, maybe we ought to stay up there with what we're paying on major maintenance and routine maintenance, because that's what keeps those buildings from deteriorating. So
Sure. No,
policy consideration,
No.
you guys
appreciate
really,
you
and I appreciate the fact that
thoughtful.
it is a line item. It's an additional budget. So
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate
Chairman.
it. Who else? Director, do you have any thoughts? And then, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Del McComey, Director for State Construction Department. I think to add on to some of the questions that were given to the chairman. So within the budget bill, or within the bill for school CapCon, is the funding for major maintenance, and that funds it fully at the 2.5%, and then the adjusted square footage and those sort of things at the 115%. So what this bill does is moves that from 115 to 135, which would be then the increase to the major maintenance in the future, today and into the future, of what's recognized in
So
the
let me-
bill.
So then give me dollar amounts.
I think we're at 237 for schools currently within the bill, and then this adds, I believe it's another 31.9 million. That's on page 5 under
Okay.
section 2, and that's for a biennium. So that adds to that. So where we're sitting today on the schools is we have currently we have 4 school districts that are 100% funded for major maintenance at the 115%, 48 districts. If we move to the 135%, that would add an additional 13 school districts that would be funded at 100% of their allowable square footage. Now, we don't fund them extra. So if one of these school districts, that 135 would go over, say that they'd need 125 to be funded fully, we only pay up to that 125. It's nothing in excess of the way we do our calculations. So that means roughly we've still got 30 school districts that aren't at 100% funded for their school buildings. So if you look at state buildings, community colleges, UW, we base our fully funded on where on 100% of their square footage. There's nothing taken into account how many people are sitting in seats in the Hirschler building or students or at a community college. We only do that on the state side. And part of that in history, if you go back to prior to 2004, we were funded at 200%. And then it went down after a couple of years to 155%. Then it went down to 135. And then here recently, I believe it's in 2008 or so, we went down to where we're at with 115. And so what that does is obviously we're not fully funding to maintain those buildings to get their full life expectancy out of those buildings. So brand new example, if we're going to build a brand new school, no enhancements on it, but a brand new school, we deliberately design those buildings at 90% of capacity because we don't want them to be at 100% the day they open. But even at that, we're on a brand new school, the way this works under the current formula, we wouldn't fund that. We'd only fund it at 90% because that's when you take in the adequate or the ADM, the amount of students in that school. So we're not funded at 100%. So the idea is to try and come closer to funding those schools. And as Senator Driscoll mentioned, yeah, there's enhancements out there, those sort of things that have added. But a lot of the older schools that were built, and that's where you spend a lot of your major maintenance, were built at more square footage than what we currently allow. And then there was additions. So if you take probably the two poster childs I'm sure you've heard about, just due to recent funding, you take Rock Springs and you take Campbell, they had 4 additions onto those schools over the years. And so you get all these hallway spaces and circulation space to take into account how they're adding on with those. And that's just excess square footage. And so then again, we're not funding that whole school at that amount. So that was the reasoning to move forward. Actually, when this bill started last year, my proposal was to fund them just like we do at the state side, how we fund those the full square footage of a building. And through the select committee and a lot of discussion that went back and forth at the time, was to just stay with the current formula because again, when we look at that, the state is trying to provide an incentive, not to fund them at 100%, but fund them enough that they will get rid of excess square footage. And so with Riverton, for example, that the chairman brought up, so Riverton 25, because they ran into this, recognized this, and this was back in the 18-19 timeframe that we started working with Riverton, because they just couldn't maintain their schools with the amount of excess square footage. They have recently got rid of the Tonka Center, the TAC Center. That was 65,000 square foot that they got rid of. They also closed down Ash Grove Elementary. That's another 34,630 square foot that they've got rid of. And now we're working in this, what's mentioned through a Mercer study to continue that process. They're going to get rid of some other elementary schools to try and reduce that overall square footage. So I think kind of the compromise we find funding it as a whole, and the other was to then bring leave some incentive to get rid of excess square footage, but better fund for their long-term major maintenance.
Please.
Chairman, thank you, Mr. McComey. I really appreciate what you folks have done. What I'm doing kind of seems negative, but it really isn't. I'm just trying to figure out how we do it. The enhancements are a burr under my saddle. I'm going to be flat honest about it. It's bothered me forever. I live in a district that doesn't do them, and consequently, they don't get much out of it. And so how difficult would it be if we just excluded all enhancements above 115? How difficult does it get for you guys to figure that out? Because that's the way I'm leaning. By the way, I actually like some of your old buildings. You know, we got into this classroom size and we started designing classrooms. I think that we're probably too small to do part of what we're doing today. And so for me, I'm good with instructional space. I'm good with additional hallways. I mean, if we got to add on and do it, I'm good with that. But I have a burr under my saddle paying for maintenance on swimming pools and enhancement stuff on the outside that really isn't a part of the educational system. And I think it goes outside of the court rulings. And so for my end, I'd be very supportive of this bill if we'd either go back to a set date or do the enhancements, I'll bring an amendment, but I'd like advice from you on what you think is the best approach.
I think we do have that in our system. So I think it's a calculation we could make. Probably throwing some weight on Jeremy Revelle, our data specialist for that, but I think it is in there.
We have it.
And so we have that. So I think how you would want to preface that if you do that would be anything maybe starting from when the state took over, so 2015, because we have grandfathered in those enhancements from those older schools. Because now we consider it an enhancement, but at the time they built it, they certainly didn't consider it an enhancement because the state wasn't doing it. And so I guess I would look at some date from 2000 on if you did that, and certainly within our system, we have that, and we could calculate that so they didn't get any extra money because of those enhancements.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
you know, with your advice, I would just like Director McComey to basically write the amendment. You understand what
Right.
I'm asking for, and what I don't want to do, like I told you earlier, I'm really proud of what you guys have done. I think you've saved the state lots of money. You've done a phenomenal job. And I find myself in a crossroads, and I realize some of these bigger districts are going to be upset with me,
Yeah.
but I really have had a burr when I read the Campbell decisions about equal education. And then I see schools building stuff that my grandkids don't have an option to have. And I think it tilts what an equal education is. And consequently, if they want to do it, I kind of look like it the way Newcastle did their whole deal. The aquatic center sits in a building away from the school and they fund it separately. It should not be part of what I'm paying for as a taxpayer. And so that's kind of where I lay. And I'll let you kind of craft the amendment and I'll bring it as we
Okay.
come. Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you,
Question.
Mr. Chairman, for the
Mi-
latitude.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think there's one other key point that I would really like to make as we're watching what is going on with our school population right now. Our ADM is dropping drastically. And so as that ADM drops, the percentage capacity drops, which means, again, like we talked about opening a new school at 90%, some of these districts are dropping down, 50, 60 or lower percent. We're maybe paying to fund half that building. And they have to take care of the whole building. But we saw a drop of near 2,500 students this year, and it is continuing to decline. So that plays into this as well.
Mr.
Thank you.
Please.
Back that, I think on those, we need to pay more than the 50, because my belief is this, and I'm watching in other states, is there's a national trend right now of homeschooling and going to alternative. But some of the states that started a little ahead of us, they're starting to have kids come back. And if we eliminate this capacity, then we're gonna be back to building new schools, assuming they do come back. And I can tell you for me personally, I'd way rather pay that excess footage in a building that's already built and funded it at 115% ad nauseum until you folks tell us it doesn't make sense anymore, than to be at a point, because I watched us do this with some districts. They either tore buildings down or moved stuff out, and then the town grows, and then we need a new $30 million school. I don't think we ought to do that. I'm happy to pay. I look down like Cary Junior High down there. The rooms are all way too big. I'm thrilled to pay on a building like that, pay for them. We'll figure out a way to pay for the square footage. Not their fault. It was built at a different time. But when you design a building in 2026 and you put 135% on it the day you build it, I can assure you, whoever follows me behind is going to be sitting here and they're going to be asking for 150%. They're say, we used to pay 200, now we need 150.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, when we look at that excess square footage, it's going to be calculated over the overall district too. So if you have, so a brand new building, we wouldn't necessarily be paying 135% on that building. It's the gross square footage within the district. Because you have some schools that are brand new and they're sitting there at 80, 90%. And you have some other schools where they don't. And that's really what Riverton's trying to address. They've got some schools there that are really low on the percentage, the 60% or whatever. And they're trying to consolidate that down into other schools. Newcastle, Mr. Chairman, up in Senator Driscoll's area, they're at
They're 30-some.
30-some% in that junior high school. I mean, they can't take care of it. They're struggling. I mean, we're talking to them all the time. So they're only getting right now at the 115, they're like getting like 40-some% of the square foot of that building.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'm fascinated by this talk about enhancements and not paying for them. My God, the School Facilities Committee beat our school district to death to make sure that we knew that any enhancements we made were not going to be in major maintenance. And we took it like men and said, okay, no problem. So
Yep.
I remember that. So you don't do that to everybody? Anyway, well, I won't even ask that question, but here's the
Yes,
question.
we do.
I thought you did. We've talked a lot about programs to, use these computers and use all the technology we've got to work on major maintenance and to set programs together. Given the fact that we've spent so much on new building, and in the coming years, those buildings are going to start to age, and then we're going to have to start taking care of them. My question is simple. Is this 135 number that we're talking about, is that number going to get us, along with the other things that we've talked about, get us on a glide path to actually saving money in the long run on new building, because we're actually taking care of what we have to a level that may put off in the distance new building? So in other words, by spending more now and putting this into place and using technology with this number, does that put us on that path?
Mr. Chairman, it certainly does. Through the studies that were done in 16, 17, and I think 18, 19 by the consultant, you won't see us coming and asking for any other changes on the major maintenance. We're there where the consultant suggested that we need to be. And within that, if you look at the age on the buildings at where we were when those studies were done versus today, it was estimated it's going to save us about $3.3 billion in capital construction, because we're going to go from buildings that were about 38 years and then they were going to need to be replaced. Up to 75 years is the life expectancy that we're trying to arrive at with this current funding.
Any questions? Brother, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matthew Wilmarth, LSO, Senior School Finance Analyst. Just to touch on a couple of questions. Senator Driscoll, in the calculations, enhancements are excluded from the square footage calculation. So those don't show up in the calculation for purposes of the square footage. Those are subtracted before the computations are made. What districts are allowed to do under the current major maintenance formula or statutes is to maintain up to 10% of their major maintenance allotment and utilize that for purposes of either maintaining enhancements or any other project that's not within their school facilities plan. So if the policy choice is to prohibit any expenditures of major maintenance on enhancements, there's a separate subsection in section 109 that would need to be amended to prohibit any expenditure of their major maintenance funds on enhancements. That section of law is not being currently amended in this bill draft. Mr. Chairman, in terms of just to orient you with the bill, section 1 amends 2 provisions under current law. The first is the routine maintenance allocated through the Education Resource Block Grant model. And that's in 2113-309. And the amendment occurs on page 3, lines 1 through 7. This is just simply striking the references to 115% and maintaining the language of 135% that was inserted last session. The next section that's being amended is 2115-109. This is the major maintenance formula, and the amendment occurs on page 5, lines 4 through 7. And again, this just simply strikes the 115% and retains the 135% that was put in last year. In terms of total square footage, as Director McComey and Administrator Carlson indicated, about 18 or 17 school districts would be funded on their actual square footage, and the remaining school districts would be funded on the lesser of 135% or up to 100% of their gross square footage. Approximately 90% of total educational square footage would be funded under this formula. Under the 115%, about 80% of educational square footage is funded. In terms of cost for the biennium, the major maintenance allocation would increase under this legislation, in addition to amounts contained in House Bill 105 that the Joint Appropriations Committee sponsored, by $31.9 million. It's about, it's estimated to be 15.9 million in fiscal year 27 and 16 million in fiscal year 28. For routine maintenance contained in and that would be appropriated to the State Construction Department. For routine maintenance, Section 2, subsection B on page 6 is the block grant funding on line 2 and 3. That would be about $11.8 million for entitlement payments. The total annual cost is approximately 6.1 million per year. There are some recapture districts that would rebate just under $300,000 per year back to the school foundation program account. With that, Mr. Chairman, happy to take any other questions.
Anyone want to come up and address this, Bill? Anyone? Is there anyone online, Linda, that would like to? Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Can I ask Mr. Wilmar's question? Yeah, I really appreciate that. I was suspicious I was on the wrong path on the deal. I kind of had that in the back of my mind. It's already covered. Can they use on Section 2 and Section 3, can they intermingle those monies at all, or are they firewalled?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Driscoll, the districts are required to maintain a separate major maintenance account in their special reserve fund. Those have to be separately accounted for, and those don't mingle per se with their block grant dollars. Nothing would prohibit a school district from expending their block grant dollars on major maintenance currently. They can utilize those funds for that purpose. There's no prohibition on that. But those are, they're administered by separate departments. The major maintenance is administered by the State Construction Department. They have to separately account for those dollars. The block grant dollars are administered by the Department of Education, and they retain those funds in their general fund primarily.
Mr. Chairman, so their block grant dollars, once we give them this 4.7 million, they can spend it on basically anything they want once we give it, even though it says this.
Mr. Chairman, correct. There is no guarantee that the additional appropriations will be utilized for any routine maintenance of those additional square feet. That would be based upon the priorities of the school boards themselves.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
Would it be appropriate for us to make it where they had to spend it on that?
Mr. Chairman, that's certainly a policy call. The allocation in total is through their block grant dollars. So if the goal is to require all of their routine maintenance to be used for purposes of routine maintenance, that would have to be a larger amendment to restrict those dollars from expenditures on any other purpose.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Kelly Little. I'm with the Associated General Contractors of Wyoming. We support this bill. I don't think there's a group of people that know the value of taking care of what you build, like contractors. And this is the second time I've got to say this in testimony today, but this to us is a spend a penny, save a pound proposition, and we'd really appreciate support here. Thanks.
I'm going to vote for the bill. I'm going to hold my nose on it. I've got some discomfort with the bill. I'm going to go ahead and vote to move it out. I don't think I fully understand, particularly when you went back to Newcastle, and I'll talk to people offline where it falls at. I believe in the last statement was made, we need to take care of what we got. I want to make sure the dollars go where they're at. And we're talking pretty big dollars here, 4.7 million into the block grant that can be spent on administration reads wrong with me. And so I may move at some point, but I think it's important we get this bill out of here and have the debate on the floor. We'll roast Chairman Landon on the floor over it.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. On four, we talk a lot about how this system that we built and how sometimes it gets gamed out by school districts. For me, the bottom line is, we always try to do things here to make things going forward better than when we got here. And this is one of those moments. I know it costs money. And I know there might be some games played with it in the beginning. Maybe, maybe not. But the one thing I'm holding on to is that when I look and listen to our folks from the construction department, people who really know, is that they're trying to set up a system using technology and using these dollars to take all the investment that we made, and it's in the billions that we've made in the past few years, and over the next 25, 30 years, set up a system where we can have major maintenance, routine maintenance taken care of. For staffs in small school districts get a tickler on their computer saying, hey, this is time to do this. Or we work with our contractors and work on systems where they can go through and take care of roof replacement and other replacements in a systematic way across the enterprise. That'll save us money. That'll save us money in the long run. We're building new schools. And I know there are other things, we're looking to look at other bills this session that maybe will bring a day where we can cover building the schools and taking care of the maintenance with money from investment vehicles that we create. But until then, we need this. And this truly is, in my view, a way to spend money now that will save us money in the future and not make it where the folks who take our places in these seats don't have to make more unappetizing decisions about spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build schools instead of maintaining the ones that we've got. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Roll call vote on Senate File 0037. Senator Driscoll.
Aye.
Senator French.
No.
Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Larson.
No.
And Chairman Salzar. Mr. Chairman, you have 3 noes and 2 ayes. The bill fails. You don't have another meeting scheduled, but I believe there are 4 bills that are coming to the committee that have not been heard on the floor yet. They're re-referrals from other committees. So if you'd like, I can schedule a meeting for tomorrow at noon and you can hear those then.
Thanks.
You're welcome.